Harmony Montgomery was a beautiful 5-year-old girl with some special needs. Harmony was born into a very difficult and complicated family situation. Her mother, Crystal Sorey, was not with her father, Adam Montgomery. In fact, Adam rarely saw Harmony her first few years of life because he was in prison. When he got out, the visits continued to be sporadic. But that was just the beginning of Harmony's troubled life. Crystal was struggling with addiction and family services were called in. Eventually, Harmony was placed in foster care, but this was not permanent. Adam went to court seeking custody of Harmony. Crystal missed that hearing because she was in another family court in another courthouse dealing with issues involving another one of her children. Then Adam was granted custody, despite his career criminal status, violent background, and lack of a stable home. At the time, Adam was married to Kayla Montgomery. They had 2 younger boys. This family of 5 was living in a car in New Hampshire when Kayla says Adam beat Harmony to death after she had accidents in that car. Adam says that's not true, and Kayla is responsible for her death. Either way, Harmony has not been seen since 2019, and her remains have never been found. A New Hampshire jury has heard all the evidence and all the arguments and now must decide if Adam Montgomery murdered Harmony. Tonight, we have the latest from court as we continue our investigation of what happened to Harmony.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us. And here we are tonight, a big day in New Hampshire, a big night for this jury. They will tell us what happened here. The jury will tell us. They haven't done it yet, though. They deliberated shortly today. They'll be back tomorrow. From my estimations, you look at a case like this, 8 hours of deliberations would not shock me with the length of this trial, the number of witnesses, the amount of evidence for this jury. But I think once you get past about 8 hours or so, that becomes a long deliberation. So tomorrow, I would suspect, would be the day, but I don't know, you don't know, no one knows. The only people who know are the jury, and the jury will tell us. They'll tell us when they've reached a unanimous verdict, and they'll tell us what happened to Harmony. And when they do, if it is tomorrow, that'll be Judgment Day for Adam Montgomery. Remember, this is the trial that he couldn't wait for. He couldn't wait for. Oh, I had the weapons problem. I knew all about that. Okay, sentence me. Do what you want. But I'm waiting for my day in court because I had nothing to do with the murder of my own daughter, Harmony. That's what he said. Bravely. And now that it's time to face the music, face the evidence, hear the evidence, face the jury, doesn't show up. Doesn't show up. And likely will not be there for Judgment Day either. We'll see if he shows up when the jury reaches its verdict. Unbelievable the way all that has developed. He's doing a lot of time already, but a conviction here is about, if he's found guilty, is about punishing him, about justice, about the truth coming out. And that's important. As we sit here, though, a lot of us thinking about, but what about Kayla? What about Kayla Montgomery? Now, she's a prosecution witness, but remember this, and prosecutors across America have to do this day in and day out and remind jurors and remind people that they don't get to pick the witnesses in their case. It's not like a prosecutor starts a case and says, all right, where can I find a good witness? No, the witnesses are the people, generally, who are in the circle of the life of the accused. And in a murder case, the accused killer. So these are people in his life. And Kayla was his wife. So you wouldn't necessarily expect her to be the most forthcoming, most credible person on earth. Addiction problems, problems with lying, and lying and lying and lying. And I think part of what the jury may be discussing is what about Kayla, because she is the one that Adam is pointing the finger at. She is also there. but she's also the most important witness for prosecutors who can put all the pieces together. So there's a lot that they have to discuss about Kayla Montgomery, and we're going to do that tonight. And what we're going to do is break down a bunch of situations that she faced and how she reacted to those circumstances. And we'll bring in our experts to see what it reveals about her and what it reveals ultimately about the truth in what happened to Harmony. Now, the big question tonight is, will there be justice? And that's a question that can be interpreted differently by different people. But for me, justice is one thing and one thing only, the same thing it was when I was a prosecutor, which is the truth coming out inside of a courtroom. And when a jury either finds someone not guilty or is unable to reach a unanimous verdict, you don't get justice. You know, for the person accused, they might feel like if they were innocent that it's justice. But for me, it's not justice until the truth of what happened is determined by a jury. And we'll see. We'll see. Right now, though, let's bring in Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson, who was in the courtroom all day, joining us live from New Hampshire tonight. Wow, I'm feeling the tension here in the studio. I can't imagine what it's been like in that courtroom and at that courthouse. So let's start here. Today was a big day, closing arguments. That's the name of this show, so you know they're important, right? Tell us first about the defense.
Well, Vinnie, nice to see you. And it was another dramatic day in a very disturbing trial. And you're right. Everyone here waiting for a verdict for much of the afternoon was on pins and needles at this courthouse here in New Hampshire. The day started with closing arguments and with the defense. Both sides very passionate. You had public defender Caroline Smith really talking about two themes of this case that she wanted this jury to think about. Adam not hating Harmony, according to her, and that Kayla is the real killer and a liar. Here's more.
He and Kayla hid, moved, lied, and manipulated Harmony's body after her death. It's unforgivable. They lied about her whereabouts after her death, and it's unforgivable. But he did not do this to hide that he killed Harmony, because he did not kill Harmony. He did this because he believed it would keep his family together. And most importantly, he did not kill his daughter. Kayla decided to lie about Harmony's death, to accuse Adam of something that he did not do, to get herself out of her own problems. And what better way than to pick an accusation that had already been made? Adam was already arrested and in jail for an allegation of striking Harmony, a tale that he had struck her and given her black eyes. That became the groundwork for Kayla's own lies. She had to lie because the truth would point to her. And her lies were accepted because Adam had already been accused of causing Kayla black eyes.
And Caroline Smith ended by telling the jury, don't base your judgment on emotion. You could return with a quick verdict, but don't do that. Really think about everything in this case and don't base it on emotion.
The quick verdict, that's interesting, because I think based upon the way the evidence is, the defense knows that if it's a quick verdict, that's not going to be good. You know, sometimes quick verdicts can be not guilty, but under these circumstances, that'd be rather bizarre. I find that the jury goes through the evidence. They want to do the right thing. You know, I served on a jury recently, just posted a video on my Facebook page. Everyone can check it out about my experience, but you want to get in there and you want to do justice. You know, yeah, you want it to end, but you want to get to the right conclusion. And you actually do create this like bond with the people involved in the case. Okay, let's talk about the prosecution. How about the state's closing argument today?
Very powerful this prosecution was today in wrapping up their case. You could hear a pin drop in that courtroom that was packed full of law enforcement that not only investigated the case, but are still searching for Harmony's remains. It's very dear to their heart. You heard about some of them testify. And the prosecutor, Ben Agati, the senior assistant AG here in New Hampshire, well, he was really talking about the fact that Harmony Montgomery was killed by her father, who hated her. And this is a case that really impacts the entire community. Even Crystal Sorey was in the gallery crying at times and had to leave during part of his statement. So watch this.
You should then consider not only all of the testimony, but also all of the corroborating testimony about all of those charges. Those two, falsifying physical and abuse of a corpse, to be true. So let's make it very, very painfully clear. From the indictments that you're going to be considering for falsifying physical evidence and abuse of a corpse, making this Harmony fit into this and disappearing her body in the condition that it could not be found for a trial like this one. The evidence was there, and the defendant's counsel professed to you that he's not disputing that, not saying he didn't commit these crimes. So you can check these two off the list. He's a murderer. That's getting rid of evidence. That's what murderers do. They get rid of evidence that would show others what they've done. They think, no body, no evidence, no conviction. They silence witnesses into staying silent or even perjuring themselves so that the witnesses don't tell others what the murderer did. Because murderers don't want to be held accountable for their actions. That's what murderers do. That's what the defendant did. Because he's a murderer too.
And we heard that several times, Vinnie, throughout that closing argument that was very powerful, using the word murderer and Adam Montgomery. And he also ended by reminding the jury about the impact of this case, not only in this community in New England, but all across the United States, the search and the vigils, and how everyone was searching for this little girl, and how she doesn't even have a proper burial, something that you've talked about quite a bit on your show, that we still don't have her body.
You know, when I think about what this jury has to determine, it's somewhat similar to a case that was very different than this one, but the circumstances, the Ryan Duke, Bo Dukes, Tara Grinstead up and vanished murder case, where you had two people who both sort of admitted to being there, getting rid of the victim. In some respect, the victim was never found. But there, no one was held accountable for the actual murder. And so people should understand that this is not necessarily automatic. Yes, we all believe it, that the evidence is very compelling and overwhelming, but you get in that jury box, things are different. When you have to consider the elements of the crime and what was actually proven and how you can connect or distinguish between Kayla Montgomery and Adam Montgomery. All right, let's get to that jury now. I have two questions about this jury. First, who is on this jury? And number two, how did they appear today during these closing arguments? Was there anything noticeably different about them during the prosecution versus the defense?
Right, you know, they were paying close attention, as they usually do. Remember, they don't have notebooks at this particular courthouse. The Judge Amy Messer said that she wants them to rely on the evidence and their own recount of that evidence. So today, they were listening very closely. And it's a cross-section of everyday people in New Hampshire, a lot of professional people. Coincidentally, most of them all have eyeglasses. But it was 17 people that listened to this case start to finish for the past 10 days. They went on that jury view. after closing arguments this morning, then Judge Amy Messer pulled out some numbers randomly from a bowl, and that's how we got our jury of 12. And here's the jury makeup that is deliberating, and we'll be back at it tomorrow morning. We have 10 women and 2 men. The foreperson is a man in his 20s to 30s, and Adam Montgomery, you know, as we've mentioned, he hasn't been in court since jury selection, and he's not required to be back here in court tomorrow if we have a verdict or if they do the reading of the verdict. So once again, we don't know if he's going to get on that transport bus tomorrow. Vinnie?
All right, Matt Johnson standing by. Make sure you're tuning in first thing in the morning for Verdict Watch. Thanks so much, Matt. I want to bring in a special guest joining us tonight in Atlanta, Georgia. The adoptive father of Harmony's brother, Blair Miller, is with us tonight. Blair, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. I know you're extremely busy, not only at home, but at work, etc. Let's start with your son, Harmony's brother. How is he doing, and has he mentioned Harmony recently?
Vinny, we have 3 boys, and we stay pretty active with 3 boys, Jameson being the youngest at 7 years old. And we've tried to shield him from details of the trial. He doesn't know this is happening. He knows she has passed and doesn't know the details of that. But it's interesting because here in the last couple of weeks, she's been on his mind. And for whatever reason, just a few nights ago, during his evening prayers, he was saying his prayers with my husband Jonathan, as they do every night. And Jameson said out of the blue, he said, I would like God to do one thing, and I'd like for him to bring Harmony back to life. And when you hear your son say that at the age of 7, you get very concerned about what's going on in his mind. And we've tried to focus on what's going on in his heart and focus on the good, because Harmony brought a lot of good to his life before he joined our family. She was his only constant in his life. So I know he has a lot to wrestle, and that will be for years to come. But to hear him talk about these things, talk about having visions of seeing Harmony, it's obviously very concerning, very powerful.
Absolutely. And what are your thoughts tonight as this jury is going to return tomorrow to continue their deliberations? All the evidence is in, arguments have been made. What are your thoughts tonight?
There's a lot of anxiety, as you might imagine. And today, as this was quickly unfolding, the closings today, it stopped me in my tracks and just sat on the couch and just sunk into the couch and just hearing everything presented as one. It's different when you hear bits and pieces and you hear about the case along the way, but when you hear everything laid out like that, it's powerful, and it gives you a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of concern. There's a lot of hope for justice, and this is one part of the justice arm that we see. We'd like there to be justice tomorrow for Harmony. We still think there's justice to be served by Massachusetts and New Hampshire, so there's not another Harmony Montgomery. And then what about the justice for Jameson when he's older, when he's an adult, when he reads these details that we all have been absorbing the last couple weeks and discussed? What's the justice like for him? And how does life unfold for him? That's our job, certainly, to help lead him through that.
Absolutely. Blair Miller, thank you so much. The best to your family always.
Thank you.
And
appreciate you.
We'll speak again. Okay, when we come back, folks, what about Kayla? What about Kayla Montgomery? We're going to take a look at some circumstances and situations and take a look at how she reacted to them to see what they reveal about her and the truth in this case. Plus, coming up next hour.
In Santa Fe, New Mexico, cinematographer Helena Hutchins was killed by a bullet that was discharged from a gun in the hand of A-lister Alec Baldwin. Tonight, we track the custody of that gun as the first trial in the Baldwin movie shooting begins.
What sickens me the most is she was guiding me through the very motions that wound up costing her her life.
Mm-hmm. But they never tell you guys to keep your finger off the trigger.
Well, I never have my finger on the trigger. Never. I never cocked the gun.
A famous actor in a movie set accident that ended in tragedy.
I turn and cock the gun goes off.
Now, Alec Baldwin and the film's armorer have both been charged with involuntary manslaughter.
Just because it's an accident doesn't mean that it's not criminal.
Court TV takes you inside the courtroom as Hannah Gutierrez faces a jury.
The Baldwin movie shooting trial. Live coverage this week following jury selection. Only on Court TV.
Kayla, you said that the abuse started in early 2020.
Yes.
And you said that this photo was taken in March of 2021.
Yes.
You also said that this was a regular occurrence.
Yes. Adam would tell me that I couldn't leave the house, and I ended up leaving and running out of the house, and I had my daughter in my arms, and I ran to Tara's apartment, which was right next door, and asked her if she could call my mom, and then Adam came out and followed me and put me in a chokehold and said to tell her to not call my mom, don't make that phone call or else he's gonna hurt me.
Kayla, why couldn't you leave the house?
Because he thought that I was trying to tell on him.
And let me ask you this, Kayla. When you left the house, were your two small sons still in the house with him?
Yes.
Why did you only take your daughter?
Because she was in my arms. I was already feeding her, and I just ran. Out and to find help, and I could go back and get the kids.
The image that I showed you, you described having bruising, black eyes.
Yeah.
Does that day stand out to you, Kayla?
Yes.
Why does it stand out to you?
Because that's the day that I took the kids and left.
So there's Kayla Montgomery talking about how she's reacting to this increase of paranoia by Adam, her husband, and the escalation of the abuse. So it's not until March of 2021 that she then reacts to all that by leaving him. Let's bring in our guests. Joining me, retired First Justice of the Worcester County Juvenile Court in Massachusetts and the author of the book about Harmony's case called A Cruel Injustice, How Massachusetts Put 4-Year-Old Harmony in the Hands of a Monster. Judge Carol Erskine is with us again. Also joining us in New York City, psychotherapist and the host of Talking Live and the Bite Size podcast, Dr. Robbie Ludwig. And finally, in Boston, Massachusetts, Boston 25 reporter Bob Ward. Great to see everyone tonight. Judge, let me begin with you. Your thoughts about the timing of all of this. Like, he apparently, according to Kayla, has already killed Harmony, and that was a while ago. And it's not till March of 2021 then there's this escalation of paranoia and abuse that she decides to get up and leave. What does that tell you about her? What does that tell you about what was going on here?
Oh, what it tells me about her is that she had been in just a horrific situation, like so many people who are victims of domestic violence. And I have, in 20 years, seen hundreds of cases, child abuse and neglect cases, where the state has petitioned to remove children for that. I saw 4 murder-suicides, and I saw other cases where the mom had been murdered, and other cases where there were stabbings and serious injuries. I mean, people, these women in my cases and with Kayla, are in a situation where they are so traumatized and so under control and so battered and so beaten that I think, as the prosecutor pointed out, she did what she was told to do. And I think there was a lot of fear there. And I also think that there was a great deal of fear over what would happen to her and her children, that, that she would possibly lose her children. So, I think the argument, that she lied, over and over again, she lied, that happens in domestic violence cases where people are in fear and where people are threatened. And nobody was more in fear than Kayla Montgomery. Does that absolve her? of the need to report what had happened to Harmony or to help Harmony when she was being beaten. I mean, I think most of us agree, that something should have happened. But, she is, like many, many women that I saw who were victimized by controlling, violent people and living in fear and living with intimidation.
Let's move forward now to December of 2021. Now, this is the first time that police contact Kayla Montgomery about Harmony and Harmony being missing, unaccounted for. Let's take a listen as she describes her reaction to that circumstance.
You were contacted by police in December of 2021, right?
Yes.
But there had actually been information in the media about looking for Harmony Montgomery, right?
Yes.
And you'd actually seen things in the newspaper about Crystal Sorey wanting to find her daughter.
Yes.
And then when the police came to you, they wanted to talk to Adam about his daughter, right?
Yes.
And at that time, you and Adam were separated, right?
Yes.
You were living in the shelter.
Yes.
This was your second time at the Fit shelter, right?
Yes.
And Adam was in Maine, right?
Yeah.
And when they talked to you, you told them that as far as you knew, Adam had taken Harmony to his mother's, right?
Her mother's, yes.
I'm sorry, thank you. And you said that you thought Adam was in Maine?
Yes.
But you didn't give them a way to get in touch with him.
Right.
But you got in touch with him.
Yes.
And you said for him to come back to Manchester.
Yes.
You said that he needed to deal with this too.
Yes.
And you said that you were not dealing with it by yourself.
Yes.
Bob Ward, I look at the situation, and this is when the story starts to bubble, right? I mean,
right.
Crystal Sorey's all over the news, and Kayla doesn't give up Adam's contact information to police. She's still protecting him.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that this bond of this experience they had with the death of Harmony kept them, on some level united, and they were still in on this, even though a couple of years had gone by. You can hear Kayla saying basically to Adam, hey, don't forget about this. We agreed here. This is our story. And she stuck to that story for quite a while, that Adam had given Harmony back to Crystal Sorey in Massachusetts on a day that Adam drove her to work at a Dunkin' Donuts. The story we now know was completely wrong. That didn't happen. It was a lie. She lied about that to the grand jury, but that was what they were going with. That was the cover story that they had. And, it's interesting that after all that time, he's with somebody else, he's in another state, she still knows where he is. And she basically said, I'm not going to deal with this by myself. And that story was locked in tight at that time, and it was for quite a while.
So let's now talk about the theft charges, because she gets charged because they're getting money because of Harmony. But Harmony's gone, so they're basically stealing this money. She gets charged with that. Let's take a listen to her, how she describes her reaction to that.
Adam got arrested on January 5th, right?
Yes.
You got arrested on January 6th.
Yes.
You knew that Adam was arrested, right?
Yes.
And you were arrested for something that eventually became a theft charge, right?
Yes.
And after you were arrested, you were incarcerated.
Yes.
You were incarcerated for several months.
Yes.
And you wanted to get out.
Yes.
You were following what was going on with Adam while you were incarcerated, right?
Overruled. I don't know.
Okay. Do you remember talking to people about the fact that Adam was still talking to Kelsey on the phone while he was incarcerated?
Yes.
While you were in jail, you sort of thought about your own trouble and maybe how to get out of trouble, right?
Not just my own trouble, but okay.
What do you mean?
I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, you thought about missing the kids, you mean? Their trouble too, because they didn't have their mother?
Yeah, and Adam. I was still thinking about Adam too.
Okay. You were thinking about Adam, weren't you?
Yeah.
Those are writings of your thoughts that you put to paper about what you wanted to betray Adam, right?
No. They are my thoughts. Yes.
Okay. Well, let's go. One of the things that you wanted was one last time with Adam, right?
Right.
You wanted one last time to maybe kiss him or make love.
Yep.
And what you didn't write was that you wanted protection from Adam, right?
Right.
What you didn't write was that you were afraid of Adam, right?
Right.
Because you didn't want protection from Adam, right?
I wasn't thinking about that.
Okay. You just wanted to be with him one last time before you, as you put it, betrayed him, right?
Yes.
All right, Dr. Robbie, a lot of people have been talking about this one, right? So she gets arrested. She's got 3 months in jail. She's very preoccupied with Adam reaching out to his new girlfriend, Kelsey. But she writes this letter where she wants to make love with Adam one more time before she betrays him.
So this is very typical of a traumatic bond that we see, that Kayla was still very much attached and in love with Adam. We don't know what her fantasies were in terms of reuniting. Clearly, there was anger and betrayal that Adam now left her for another girlfriend. And I think it's just a lot of mixed emotions. Many of these women in abusive relationships, they still are very much in love and committed to their husband and partner. And they often very much minimize the abuse that goes on. They're so used to it. They don't experience the abuse in the same way an outsider would. So to Kayla, this was her life. And I think she wanted to get back with Adam because her life with him was better than it is without him.
All our guests are staying with us. When we come back, we're going to talk more about Kayla Montgomery, how she's reacting to different circumstances, and did we get the truth from her on the witness stand?
That note was your thoughts for what you wanted your attorney to talk to the AG about, right?
Yes.
And that note was found in your cell, hidden like between the mattress and the frame?
No, it was in a book.
Okay. But it was found during a regular cell search, right?
Yes.
And the COs asked you about that note?
Yes.
And you said that you wanted to talk to the AG?
Yes.
Right? And when you hoped to talk to the AG, those were the conditions that you wanted to get?
Yes.
And you did not have a conversation with the AG in January, right?
No.
Didn't have a conversation with the AG in February, right?
No.
Didn't have a conversation with the AG in March, right?
No.
But you did get a subpoena for the grand jury?
Yes.
And you understood what the grand jury was?
Yes.
So Kayla Montgomery gets subpoenaed to the grand jury. How does she react to that subpoena? What does she do in front of the grand jury? Take a listen.
Kayla, why are you currently incarcerated?
For perjury, for lying on to the jury about the whereabouts of where I was and where Harmony was.
And when you say lying to the jury, was that the grand jury?
Yes.
Did you also lie to the police?
Yes.
Why'd you do that?
Because I was scared, and I was told by Adam to stick with that story, that I got dropped off at work at Dunkin' Donuts, where I no longer worked at that time, and to say that he was bringing Harmony to meet her mother, Crystal, and that he dropped her off with her.
Such a significant moment there. Judge Carol Erskine, Dr. Robbie Ludwig, and Bob Ward still with me. Bob, let me ask you about this. So this is so significant for this trial because here she has to admit, yeah, I was in front of a jury, a grand jury, and I just lied. I lied. She was under subpoena just like she's under subpoena to be at this trial.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue in this case, her credibility, and she was looking at 3.5 to 7 years consecutive on these charges that she admitted to, that she lied to the grand jury, and that's what got her finally motivated to talk to the police and start saying what happened to Harmony, where did she go, and where is she now? It was only the legal trouble that she was in, which is on top of the other case where she was still collecting those benefits after Harmony was gone, that she realized that she couldn't continue to protect Adam anymore. He was already locked up, and that if she didn't come out and say something and tell the truth and make a deal, that she was looking at 14 years in prison and losing her other 3 kids. So, you know, it's not the first time that a defendant that's jammed up finally agrees to talk, but that's what happened. But now, as you mentioned, it's a pivotal thing in this trial because her credibility is at stake, and she's the one that talks about what happened in the backseat of that car and how Harmony died. She is the key witness there, and that's why this is so important.
And, you know, a lot of times there's credibility problems with jurors, but like not convicted perjurers. This is like the ultimate credibility problem. Okay, so she's facing now those perjury charges. Here she is talking about how she reacts to that.
So on June 3rd, you met with the police for a pretty long time, right?
Yes.
The police were generally the ones asking questions.
Yes.
But there was somebody from the Attorney General's office who was also present.
Yes.
And then you got booked for the perjury charges.
Yes.
And during booking, you said something to Detective Dunleavy about Portland pie.
Yes.
And that Adam had taken the body to Portland pie from the freezer and then returned it to Union Street later.
Yes.
Then you talked again on the June 23rd.
Yes.
And on June 23rd, that was also audio and video recorded.
Yes.
And about the same amount of people were there.
Yes.
And generally the same people.
Yes.
And after that, you did reach your deal, right?
Yes.
Okay, Judge, can we trust an admitted perjurer, right? That's the question here.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree with you that, you know, perjury is sort of the ultimate credibility killer, and that's you know, of course, a problem. But I have to say that her testimony about what happened on that ride through every single stoplight as he's turning around and beating Harmony was so very detailed. It's like it's burned in her brain. And so the fact that she lied to a grand jury is one thing. And of course it's perjury, but I think when the prosecutor held up the picture of her having been beaten with a black eye and a swollen face, it explains a lot for jurors to say, okay, now I see why she lied. And, you know, that picture, as the expression goes, is worth 1,000 words. But I found her testimony about what happened to Harmony December 7th very credible. And not only was it credible, it was supported by corroborating evidence. So I don't think the issue of perjury or her trying to strike a deal is as strong as the defense wants it to be.
Now, Adam Montgomery not showing up to court, Dr. Robbie, but he was in court for his weapons charges trial back in June of 2023, and Kayla Montgomery did testify in that case as well. Let's take a look at this video as she enters that courtroom, and he is staring her down, but she is not even glancing over at him. Your thoughts about what's going on at this point now between these two?
Well, clearly at one point, Kayla was loyal to Adam. He had a lot of power over her. So if he said to lie, she trusted him more than anybody else in the court system or, the police officers. Adam was her go-to person. But at some point, that loyalty switches a little bit when she realizes it's either going to be Adam or me. And I think I need to choose me because I'm the only one that can save myself and be the mother I want to be to my children. So I think that there was a shift when there was a huge confrontation and she realized she could end up in jail for a very long time. For what? For a man who led her down the wrong path? So I think throughout this process, her ability to see reality and have some clarity became more clear over time. And perhaps it's because she had other influences on her that were healthy. And it broke that tendency of hers to just rely on one person who's a liar, who's violent, and responsible most likely for the death of Harmony.
Great insight tonight from everyone. Judge Carol Erskine, Dr. Robbie Ludwig, Bob Ward. Tomorrow may very well be the day. Thank you so much.